Joining us now, Curtis Ellis. Curtis is Senior Policy Advisor of America First Policies. Curtis, great to have you with us, man.
It's great to be here. I wanted to just offer my condolences to your entire city. I'm sure everyone knows someone, or at least a couple of degrees of separation knows someone who's touched by this. And it's a terrible tragedy.
It's horrible. You know, it's amazing that instead of really thinking about this whole thing through, and what could be done in the future, how this can be better taken care of. I mean, that was the only gun-free zone there in the municipal complex. But Curtis, I'm going to get to Mexico in a minute, but I tell you what really troubled me about this was the number of Democrats all over the board, and especially those running for president, who the blood wasn't even sopped up off the floor. I mean, people are still getting transported by ambulance, and they were coming out politicizing it for their own gain, trying to get another 5 crackpot, whack job caucus votes in Iowa, ban guns, ban this, pass laws, do this. I mean, can't they even wait a day to see who's dead and alive? I mean, what is wrong with these people?
Well, they're politicians and they're looking for votes, and you never let any crisis go to waste. And it's to me, look, there's there's clearly a big problem in the country, in our society, and it's not guns. Guns are a symptom. People are stressed out. They're snapping. And it manifests in every way. As I was over in India recently, over there people drink insecticide to kill themselves, and they poison their family. And there's something afoot. There's evil afoot in the world and in the land. And we need to get to the bottom of this. And the banning guns is not going to solve the problem. And so the knee-jerk reaction, the reflex go-to response of the left is always in the external world. We're going to lock down, pass a law to change people's behavior. If we make guns unavailable, that'll solve the problem. It's not that simple. It's never that. If we give everybody $1,000 a month, a week, a day, everybody will be rich and happy. It's not that simple. It's never that simple.
No, it isn't. And I would have preferred to see at least a couple days go by, the weekend go by, and the church services go by before the Democrats jumped on it for political gain, but they just can't help themselves. I mean, it's just...
And they don't believe, and unfortunately, too many of them don't believe in church and don't believe,
that's true.
As you said, in thoughts and prayers. It's that's useless stuff. That's just silly. That's silly superstition. We need a law. The law will provide solace to everyone. Once they know that Big Brother is watching, then we can all feel comforted. So right. We don't need thoughts and prayers and things like that. We need laws.
Big Brother.
I mean, that's the most frightening aspect of this whole thing, perhaps.
John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America, live today from Virginia Beach. We'll be here tomorrow as well, and trying to keep an eye on the situation. Bobby Dyer, mayor of Virginia Beach, trying to get with us today or tomorrow. We're with Curtis Ellis. Curtis is a senior policy advisor with American First Policies. He is also a former member of the Trump for President campaign and a former official, high-ranking official at the Department of Labor. And Curtis Ellis also served on the transition team for the Trump campaign. Curtis, the president on Thursday night laying out a tariff plan for Mexico. Basically, here's what he said. Look, we send you $350 billion a year in imports. That's what we buy. You get the cash. And you're not doing anything to help this crisis at the border. And so here's what we're going to do. Every month, we're going to start putting a 5% tariff on whatever comes over. We're going to do that until it gets to 25% in August. And what we want is you to cooperate with us to stop this invasion in the southern border. Let me play cut 3 for you. Acting DHS Secretary Kevin McAleen, he said this with Jake Tapper, State the Union. He says, last year, we apprehended 17,000 criminal at the border, an additional 808 gang members. We're on a pace right now, based on the last week, to get 3 million illegals apprehended in this country. 3 million. I mean, that's bigger than half the cities in America. Cut three.
So last year, we apprehended 17,000 criminals at the border and an additional 808 known gang members. And that was
808.
Yeah, that was on about half the crossing level we're facing today. The other challenge we have is that our humanitarian mission, processing these families, trying to care for these kids, is pulling our agents off the line. 40% of our agents are involved in processing and care of families and children right now. They are not on the borderline, so we don't even know what we're missing with confidence. We need to be out there on the line, securing the border against those that are trying to evade capture, the smugglers bringing drugs across, and, as you noted, potential criminals and gang members in that flow.
All right, Acting Secretary McAleenan, thanks so much.
Curtis, this is an invasion, and the president can't get action from Congress. Nobody will stop it. So now he's looking to the Mexican government and AMLO in order to work with him, and he's putting a reverse carrot in a stick, right? I mean, there's no carrot. This is all a stick.
Exactly right. Nothing focuses the mind of the Mexican government and the Mexican elite like the prospect of losing money. They're making huge amounts of money off of our policies which planted our auto factories and maquiladoras. These are electronic assembly plants. All kinds of factories moved from the United States to Mexico, and that's why we now have that huge trade deficit with Mexico. And as you said, $350 billion worth of imports come in from Mexico, and folks, it's not all guacamole. You know, it's manufactured goods. And the Mexican elites are making money off this, by the way. Don't kid yourself. The Mexican workers are not getting rich. They're not being paid union wages. They're not living like auto workers in Dearborn used to live in the 1960s. In fact, the Mexican middle class, the Mexican wages have been flat or have fallen since NAFTA, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
So the elites are raking in the money the same way the corrupt elites in Mexico make money off the drug trade. The police are paid to look the other way. The highest levels of government are being bribed by the cartels. So you tell these Mexican elites that they're going to lose money. There's going to be a 25% whack on their products, and suddenly they're going to take some action. They never have allowed Guatemalans and Hondurans and El Salvadorans to come into Mexico and squat there. I've traveled throughout Mexico and Central America, and let me tell you, folks, compared to El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras, Mexico, the poorest part of Mexico, looks like Beverly Hills. It is far wealthier than its Central American neighbors. And the same reason Mexicans would come to the United States, legally, illegally, any way they could get here, for a better standard of living and better pay, Central Americans would come to Mexico if they could. But the Mexican government never would allow them. And however, they're now looking the other way as the criminal organizations use Mexico as a freeway to bring all these people through Mexico to the United States. And what President Trump is doing is saying, folks, you can't do that anymore. You are going to stop them at your southern border. And otherwise there will be consequences. And in the old days, in 1848, 1850, 1870, maybe we would have sent the army down there. But that's not the way things work anymore. So we use economic leverage. And that's what he's doing. And I expect it will work. And it'll be very interesting, John, that we're going to see the Mexican government do more to defend our borders than the U.S. Congress has done. That's a very sad commentary on the Democratic-controlled Congress.
Well, because the Democrats don't want to control the borders. The
No.
Mexican government now has to control them. Otherwise, it's going to cost them up to $80 billion, right? If $400 billion of imports are going to Mexico, it's actually $385 billion cash. If that's going to Mexico, U.S. dollars, importing their goods, and the tariffs get to 25%, that's upwards of $85 billion going to cost the Mexican government. So there's a there's, like I said, a reverse incentive here. There's a stick, no carrot, and it's basically if you want the money to keep flowing, you're going to have to work with us. So they're going to want to do that. But you're right. I mean, the basic thing here is that the Democrats don't want to control the borders, Curtis. They don't want to stop the illegal inflow. They don't want to stop the invasion. They have no incentive to do it. Why should they do it? Those are their voters and workers. They don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's right. They don't want to do it. And the far left elements within the Democratic Party, and I tell you, anybody who's not far left in the Democratic Party is simply a puppet of the far left within the Democratic Party, don't believe in borders. They don't believe in border enforcement. They don't believe in nations. They think citizenship itself is some exclusionary racist thing, and of course the United States itself is an exclusionary racist, overprivileged, white privileged, horrible place or something, and it's up to us to make reparations not just to the descendants of slaves, but we have to make reparations to the entire world because we've been so bad for all these years. That's basically the attitude that inhabits the Democratic Party. And it's really sick. It's self-loathing, and but short version, no, they don't want to enforce the border at all. They see advantages, either politically, message-wise. Oh, see, we're so compassionate to people of different colors, and that's what this is all about. It's a race thing. It's not a race thing. That's ridiculous. It's a canard, and so they've chosen not to do anything. Anytime the president suggests doing something, they find an excuse not to. And it's interesting, John, that the powers that the president has invoked are in imposing these tariffs stem from the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, adopted by Congress in 1977. It updated the Trading with the Enemies Act, which goes back to the beginning of the last century, I believe. It may even be older than that, the Trading with the Enemies Act. But what it does is this is a classic case of why that law is on the books. If there's an international emergency that threatens national security, Congress, in its infinite wisdom, realized that they would dither and could not act with the exigency, with the immediate they would be unable to act immediately to address an international emergency. Therefore, they gave the president the power to do that. And that's exactly what he's doing. This is a textbook case. We have 1 million people expected to cross the southern border, 1 million of the poorest people on earth coming into our country, and Congress cannot act. And they predicted they could not act in 1977 when they passed the Emergency Powers Act. So, unfortunately, they're living up to their own worst expectations or their own realistic understanding of their inability to do anything.
John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. We're in Virginia Beach today. This horrific shooting in the area. We're with Curtis Ellis. Curtis, Senior Policy Advisor, America First Policies. Curtis also was on the transition team, Trump campaign, and a high-ranking official at Department of Labor, so he knows what he talks about, and Chairman Emeritus of the American Jobs Alliance. Curtis, let me ask you this straight out. A lot of the typical apologists for free trade, the propagandists at the Wall Street Journal, the Heritage Foundation, they all got together within minutes of the president announcing this, blasting the tariffs on Mexico, saying that it was going to destroy the U.S. economy, the stocks were going to tumble, everybody's 401k would get wiped out. Sound familiar?
Yeah, they say this every time. Anytime the president does something to rebalance our trade imbalance, they freak out. They have subscribed to some bankrupt ideology, bankrupt philosophy of free trade, distorted free trade. They're not going back to the original Adam Smith version of free trade. They've adopted a utopian notion of free trade that you can never use tariffs. There is no reason to have a country because, by the way, no reason to have borders. There must be the free flow of people, goods, services, capital all around the world. And I say that, and I say this not exaggerating. The Wall Street Journal editorial page said there should be an amendment to the Constitution that consists of 4 words, or maybe 5. There shall be no borders. That's the Wall Street Journal editorial page. That's not Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. That's not Kirsten Gillibrand. That's not Kamala Harris. That's the Wall Street Journal editorial page. These are libertarian fundamentalists, whack jobs. I mean, to be a little blunt about it. I mean, that's a wacky idea. I'm sorry. That is a wacky idea. And as you say, the slave trade network, they live on Wall Street, and they want no borders. They want to be able to exploit cheap labor everywhere, and they want to bring in goods made by cheap labor. If they can't bring the cheap labor here, they'll put their factory over there and bring the goods in, tax-free, tariff-free, and they think this is great. Well, it's great for them. They may be able to make more money in the short run. In the long run, everybody's poor and can't afford nothing. So
every time they see a caravan of 1,000 people bum rush the border like they did on Wednesday morning at 4 a.m., and 1,000 of them get arrested. Of course, we don't know about the other 1,000 that's just in the interior. Every time that Goldman Sachs, Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, their donors, their benefactors, and what I call the Lower Manhattan propagandizers, whenever they see this, we see, oh my God, we don't have a country. They see, I'm going to get a bigger bonus in the third quarter because wages for the companies I'm investing in are going to go down. I don't really care about them or their people. I live in a mansion walled with guns and guards, and I'm going to be able to buy a bigger yacht. That's what they see. And let's just call this, Curtis, for what it is. I mean, I called him out 2 weeks ago when the president announced his tariffs on China. I knew it was going to happen on Thursday. On Friday morning, I said, before the bell is rung on Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal at 10:05 would have a front page digital headline saying it was economic Armageddon. The sky was going to fall. Everybody was going to get wiped out, be destitute and on the streets because of this Mexican tariff or because of the Chinese tariff. They take the same article, they change 5 words, cut and pasted, and then they say stocks are crashing. And of course, that causes stocks to go down because it's on the front page of the Journal, on their digital page.
Right.
And then again, like the Chinese tariffs, at the end of the day, they rebound because like sober people say, hey, I'm going to keep buying because this doesn't matter. The economy's doing great. How long did they repeat this and hit the replay button before people wise up?
I don't know if they'll ever wise up because after the stocks fall, then somebody comes in and buys stocks at a cheaper price, or you can't discount the possibility that when they set the type for that headline, they've already put in their order to their broker to say short the stock. I'll make money when it falls. They've got all kinds of crazy mechanisms to manipulate the market and to make money either way it goes. And the brokers, by the way, they make money whether you buy, sell, whether the stock goes up or not. They make a commission on the trade. So they have every reason to, just like the cable news networks like MSNBC and CNN, they have every reason to keep promoting mass hysteria because they make money off it. It's really despicable. And this whole thing that tariffs are always bad and tariffs are bad is just a complete lie. They have no understanding. They read one book and now they think they understand the world. They read something in a book once and now they think they understand how the world works. And it's not that. I got news for them. No, it doesn't work that way. Smoot-Hawley had nothing to do with the Great Depression, okay? Great Depression happened because the Federal Reserve failed to put money into the economy. Money disappeared. Nobody had any money. That simple. It was nothing to do with the Smoot-Hawley tariff of 1930. By the way, folks, the crash was in 1929.
Curtis, I'm almost out of time. Bottom line, the president's tariff proposal on Mexico. Let's each do it. I'll start, then give you the final word. I think it is a brilliant, bold plan. Has to be done. I'm convinced it's going to work. And in the short term, it's going to have very little effect on consumers or anything else. It's not going to be Armageddon. But I think it's a bold stroke by the president. I'm proud of him for doing it. He's got to do something. Hopefully it'll work. What about you? Bottom line it.
Absolute brilliant move. It's focused the attention of the Mexican government. They're already at the negotiating table. They're going to fortify their 150-mile border at the southern end of the country. It's going to work. No one is going to have to worry about this. They're not going to pay more money. Guacamole is not going to become a luxury item like caviar. Fear not.
All right, John Fredericks Radio Network, a luxury item. Curtis, great to have you with us, man. Curtis Ellis, you can follow him. Go to AmericaFirstPolicies.org. Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor with America First Policies, the only political action committee 100% endorsed by President Trump. Curtis, thanks for being with us, man.
Thank you.